Birdman, 5-star stunner man, the Dragon Ball head himself. Shout out to Birdman, man. Love that guy. Whole Patreon is named after Birdman. But Birdman said something that was very interesting. He believes the South will never lose their grip on hip-hop dominance. So I want to talk about that. First, let's go over the article. Birdman has claimed that the South will remain at the top of the hip-hop food chain for years to come. The Cash Money Records co-founder recently sat down for an insightful conversation on the 85 South show where he reflected on the Southern hip-hop's early struggles in the 1990s being taken seriously by the East and West Coast, who at the time were the dominant regions. This is what he had to say. The East and the West was the last two places that would embrace our music if you were from the South. Birdman said, it's always been a competitive thing for us with them because they felt like they was better than us and we felt like we were better than them, especially in our neck of the woods, the South. He continued saying, you'll have a hit in the South and it'll take a long time to hit in the East and the West. But once they caught on to us like it is now, I don't think they'll ever get it back. We're here forever because they had it forever. The East and the West, they had it forever. It was challenging for us coming up, very, very challenging because they wouldn't play our music in no kind of way. So he basically gave props to Jermaine Dupri for kicking down the doors for Southern hip-hop as well. So check out the interview. He stopped by the 85 South show. Very cool, man. Any Birdman interview I like to watch. So I didn't know about this till now. But I will definitely checking out the interview and seeing what Birdman has to say. I do believe that the South, I want to say probably I saw the shift coming in like 2006, 2007. Because at that time, I was hearing a lot of dance music that was from the South. And you can kind of say like 50 was losing his buzz. Dipset was losing their buzz. Rockefeller had split up, so Jay-Z really wasn't doing his thing like that at that moment. Like kind of 2005, 2006, you could even say till 2007, while Jay-Z was doing the Def Jam CEO thing, he did drop the Kingdom Come album, but, that didn't really hit like it was supposed to. A lot of people were disappointed by that album. Then 50 had that whole Kanye thing. That didn't hit like it was supposed to with Curtis. And then Dipset they split up at that moment too. Cameron was, wherever Cameron was. Fat Joe decided to take the more South route and started making more Southern beats, Southern music. So just, New York itself started just kind of crumbling. And then you have to look at, the West Coast. Nobody really was dominating besides the Game at that point. Snoop Dogg had hits here and there, but, wasn't really like that. Dr. Dre kind of wasn't in the limelight anymore. Any other artist from the West really wasn't dominating. So it was a perfect open season for the South to kind of take over. And, you saw bits of it here and there. You would see T.I. taking over doing his thing. Then you would see, the Houston rappers starting to take over. Mike Jones, Paul Wall, Slim Thug, all these artists. And slowly, and then you would see all these dancing and all this snap, crackle, pop type of music. And you had Soulja Boy, and then you had, them Franchise Boys, and My White Tee. I don't know, all these records dancing, Pop, Lock, and Drop It, Crime Mob, all these artists, especially from Atlanta, started to pop off, and then boom, eventually the South took over. And Birdman's been right, man. South has been dominating since the West Coast and New York. I think New York had a chance to get it back. Had the 6ix9ine thing not happened, had Pop Smoke still been alive, with Cardi B being in the thing, Ice Spice, and a couple of female rappers as well in New York doing their thing, A Boogie with a Hoodie. Those artists, had those things not happened to 6ix9ine with the snitching, had Pop Smoke still been alive, I feel like all of them together would have brought New York, back its dominance. Now on the West Coast, there's a lot more spread out things. West Coast had a lot of fatalities as well. So, I think New York would have had a better shot at kind of regaining that. But the sound was still, it wasn't New York. It was still Southern influence sound. So Birdman's right, man. I don't think right now who outside of the South is really, really buzzing like that, like crazy. Because you got to think, Drake is like the only one, Kendrick here, and then you got artists here and there, yeah. But what's the majority? It's in the South, specifically a lot of times in Atlanta. But yeah, just interesting take, man. I have always been interested in, I always wanted to document that that part, of how the South started to take over. I think that's very interesting. I might, I have a lot of ideas for documentaries. I mean, I write them down and I just kind of keep them there to when I feel like it, I'm ready to do it. But that would be an interesting documentary to make, is to document when exactly the South took over and did their thing. Like when Fat Joe said, I think I'll make it rain. Why is everybody so mad at the South for? Why is everybody so mad at the South for? Switch the style up. I changed the Southpaw. I think he said something like that on Make It Rain. But when he said that, he just made it clear, like, why is everybody mad at the South taking over? I switched the style up to Southpaw, and here I am, in terms of boxing references. But, so Fat Joe made the whole transition to South. Some people even, like newer people that didn't know Fat Joe, thought he was from the South, which is hilarious. But, Birdman's right, man. Right now, even moving forward, the South is still dominated. I think it's still a little more spread out. If Atlanta takes a lot more hits with these RICO cases, like YSL, you got YFN Lucci, YFN Gang as well. And if something happens to Lil Baby or all these other artists and they start getting taken down, like right now what's going on with Gunna and the whole snitching allegations, even though Gunna's dominating with that Fuck You Mean record, if those things continue to happen, or if lives get lost when it comes to artists in the South, they can lose it as well. It's just really, like I said, I do feel New York would have had that dominance had Pop Smoke been alive, had the 6ix9ine thing not happened. New York was at one moment like grabbing it back. Because for a while, it was actually, you got to give props to Nicki Minaj. For a while, it was really just Nicki Minaj holding down New York for a minute. I can't think of anybody from 2010. You had A$AP Rocky, but he was so South sounding that it was still like, you did have A$AP Rocky for a little bit. Who else came out in the fucking, Joey Badass here and there, but he wasn't like mainstream dominant. Like, I'm talking mainstream dominant, was all over the place. Like, Nicki Minaj was holding that down for a minute, man. Cardi B then came, and then you had Pop Smoke, and you had 6ix9ine doing all this. And, so New York was slowly getting to the place where they were. But, they took those hits, and, it's kind of like back to square one, even though New York has a couple of artists that is out right now that are doing well. So, Birdman's right, man. He has his finger on the pulse of hip-hop, and his takes are always interesting, man. I always find them very interesting. And Birdman, he's never out of touch, man, regardless of him not being in the limelight or not signing every new artist. He's never out of touch, man. This guy definitely keeps his pulse on hip-hop, sees what's next, and sometimes can just gauge it and sign it. He's literally touched every artist that has come up in like the last 20, 30 years, had some role in helping an artist in one way or another, because he's always had the pulse on hip-hop. So shout out to Birdman, man. I'm going to go definitely check out the interview. I suggest you guys check it out as well.